Well, those Nvidia earnings are out here, and indeed the company is beating estimates. Let me run through the numbers here for you. First of all, fourth quarter revenue, $22.1 billion versus the $20.4 that was estimated. The company's first quarter revenue forecast looks like it also is above estimates at $24 billion, plus or minus 2%. Analysts had been looking for $21.9 billion. So we are not seeing the kind of magnitude of forecast beats like we have in the past. That could account for the decline we're seeing in the shares here. Data center revenue at $18.4 billion. That's better than the $17.2 that was estimated. Gaming revenue of $2.9 billion. Gaming revenue, by the way, which had been a softer area in some of the recent quarters, that coming in better than estimated. And automotive revenue, a smaller but growing part of their business at $281 million. $272 million was the average analyst estimate. Their gross margin in the fourth quarter, by the way, also ahead of estimates at 76.7%. So I'm seeing most of the numbers here coming out and beating estimates. The shares initially, I think, rose a little bit and now are falling back. The company talking in the release that generative AI has hit the tipping point. So, what we discussed going into this was what could possibly be a scenario where we could see the stock continue to move higher, because expectations, even with the decline what we've seen in recent days, expectations were so very lofty for this company. So it looks like, at least at first blush here, the forecast and what they're saying is not quite lofty enough to keep the stock going.
Although it's kind of fighting back to the flat line here in the after hours. We actually saw it first. The first initial was down about 4%, Julie, and now you can see we're kind of battling back to the flat line here. To your point, there was some commentary, given the size of the move in the stock. You're up almost 40% already this year. Some folks were saying, even if you had good news, what good news could be good enough, right? And now we've actually we did flip green there for a second. I think it'll be really interesting. If you go in the internals as you did, data center beat and gaming beat, and the forecasts. Looking at Q1 forecast for revenue, looks stronger than the street was expecting. Some issues on the call that I think will be really interesting to hear from Jensen Huang. Data center revenue, that's where all eyes are on, as our own Dan Halley was talking about. What do they kind of see in terms of puts and takes in the quarters ahead for that unit in particular? Competition will be in focus. When you've had the kind of run that Nvidia has had, it certainly attracts a lot of competition, AMD and Intel. And I would also expect a lot of questions about China as well. Given export restrictions, Nvidia can't sell anymore its latest and greatest chips to China. There was some expectation that, okay, they're going to have a regulation compliant new chip on the way. We'll see if we get color on that as well.
And now the stock is higher again. So obviously investors are trying to figure out what to make of this. I wanted to bring more of Jensen Huang's comments to you from the statement here, the CEO, of course, of Nvidia. When I mentioned, he said generative AI has hit the tipping point. He says accelerated computing and generative AI have hit the tipping point. Demand is surging worldwide across companies, industries, and nations, he says. And he's also talking about the data center platform powered by increasingly diverse drivers, he says. Demand for data processing, training, and inference from large cloud service providers and GPU specialized ones. So basically, he's saying there's a diverse source of customers for this across a diverse number of industries. So that's kind of the first blush commentary that we're getting from Jensen Huang, and investors are trying to figure out what to do.